wrong is the easiest thing to do. Rather than together, we find and we identify the problems and solve it together. These are the things before all our eyes to see, but not to lose hope in you, but reasons to seek in you as the eternal hope who knows the answers. We believe you who would bring good out of hopelessness. Help our leaders to uphold the values of democracy, transparency, and willingness to promote the good of other people before their own. That is love that you want us to live by. Lord, as pilgrims of hope, make us the hope of the world, especially make each and everyone see hope in each other. Father in heaven, may the faith you have given us in your Son, Jesus Christ, our brother, and the flame of charity enkindled in our hearts by the Holy Spirit, reawaken in us the blessed hope for the coming of your kingdom. May the grace of the Jubilee reawaken in us, pilgrims of hope, a yearning for the treasures of heaven. May the same grace spread the joy and peace of our Redeemer throughout the earth. To you, our God, eternally blessed, be glory and praise forever. Amen.
Oaths, confirmation of minutes, papers to be laid on the table.
I recognize the Honorable Financial Secretary acting.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table of this Honourable House the following papers appearing under the name of the Financial Secretary. Performance Audit of Montserrat Utilities Limited, Efficiency, Effectiveness, Financial Stability, and the Transition to Renewable Energy. Thank you.
Recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table of this Honourable House the following paper appearing under the name of the Attorney General. SRNO number 3 of 2025, proclamation appointing Monday, 16 June 2025 as a public holiday. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ministerial statements.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Health, Social Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This went more quickly than I expected. Just give me a minute to find the statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak as Minister of Education, Health and Social Services. As ministries, I feel we did very well in January as teams at the Budget Support Mission, previously known as the Financial Aid Mission, where the government of Montserrat met with the FCD or British government to talk about money. What I thought would have been a frightening and painful experience was actually an enjoyable 3 days of discussing Montserrat, its future, and our hopes for it in a very organized and well-researched manner. I would like to thank all three teams, Education, Health and Social Services, for excellent teamwork, excellent presentations, and excellent discussions, and for their undying commitment to improving Montserrat, each in their own way. The highlight for me during the budget support mission was the adult and child safeguarding discussion, which was incredibly moving. I am very happy that we take this subject very seriously. In all areas, though, I felt that all three teams did excellent work, and we are expecting best outcome at the budget talks next month. The purpose of this ministerial statement is to briefly recap our asks for the sake of those members of the public who would like to be kept informed, Madam Speaker. To give the people, Madam Speaker, the assurance that the priorities and the commitment of our government have not changed in regards to health, education, and social services. In education, we have asked for the following, all in line with the United Nations 2015 Sustainable Development Goals and our Sustainable Development Plan locally. We have asked, as we said we would, for a special educational needs program that has a legal and policy framework, an adequate staffing complement and training provision that mirrors that in the United Kingdom. For this to happen, we welcome an assessment or reassessment of our school population through a UK team. The staffing complement must include speech and language therapists that we are hopefully shortly to get, and a full complement of special educational needs staff will also include a special educational needs coordinator for each school, an educational psychologist, this role is presently being advertised, special educational needs teachers, and special educational needs personal assistants. I'd like to note that in this request or in this ask, we have the support of the Montserrat community, persons who are parents of special educational needs children, well-wishers for the children, and teachers who would like further training in this area. We have asked for funding for after-school programs to ensure that our children during the vulnerable period from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., in which there is often no or inadequate parental support, that they are safe, learning, or engaged in career development, in sporting activities, or other safe activities. So we're asking for money for after-school clubs where our children can be protected, safe, and can learn some things. We have asked also for an extension of the school meals program to include breakfast and for a lunchroom or cafeteria for the Montserrat Secondary School. Our children, Madam Speaker, should not be expected to sit on the ground or on a wall or on a stone to eat meals at school. We have asked for funding to repair the schools. It is too great a risk to not have repairs done. 2 students have recently suffered broken limbs and a teacher has been injured due to faulty buildings. We have asked for an education project manager to facilitate the research, the development, and the implementation of our plans in education. We have asked for assistance with staffing for legislative and policy review in education. We have asked for learning and development support for our staff in education through established partnerships with established UK schools. And we have asked for the support of teachers locally in the form of a teacher retention program. For the library, lastly, in education, we have asked for funding for library development. The library plans to extend its hours to assist students, and there's also a need for additional support for their essential archiving project. In health, we have discussed the problem of medical evacuation with a view to improving on the present situation. This is not a funding request, as it does not cost extra to get a patient out faster, but it warranted discussion on the importance of timely medical evacuation for our time-critical cases. We campaigned on appropriately managing the complications of diabetes, hypertension, which are prevalent on this island. And please note that by the age of 60% of Caribbean people are diabetic and hypertensive, so this is very relevant. And over the last 40 years, we've watched the onset of complications in this population despite a commitment to primary health care and prevention programs. So it is essential that we focus on these complications. We hope for specific focus on the cardiovascular complications of diabetes and hypertension, focus on end-stage kidney disease, and focus on blindness, which incapacitates older members of our population. At the Budget Support Mission, we asked for funding for visiting specialist clinics to include a vascular surgeon and a vascular sonographer to assess and repair circulatory issues at the level of the blood vessels, thus avoiding amputation. For the management of stroke and heart attack, This is more about following appropriate guidelines, liaising with the appropriate specialist, and timely medevac. This is about policy and protocol and less about extra money. In ophthalmology, we have not made a specific ask, but we are presently liaising with specialists about the option of local eye surgery for our elderly population in order to avoid the cost and the inconvenience of travel for eye care. In kidney disease, we await a discussion planned for next week on dialysis with a charity. As a population very susceptible to kidney disease, we also have a genetic predisposition beyond the presence of diabetes and hypertension. So as a population where kidney disease is on the rise, we're having a discussion next week to focus on how we can bring dialysis to Montserrat in the most efficient, cost-effective, and safe way. We have promised on early cancer diagnosis, and we have asked with our visiting specialist program to cover the cost of visiting endoscopists for the early screening of gastrointestinal cancers, and we're on our way with discussions about a cancer registry as promised. We want to end the trend of stage 4 cancers being the first cancer diagnosis on Montserrat. In early diagnosis, but by diagnosing patients early with a cancer, we are more likely to achieve a cure, Madam Speaker, and it also reduces the overall cost of care and allows for persons to remain in the workforce. There were many other health asks through health transformation which relate to funding and maintenance of the CT and mammogram machines and their staffing and general workforce strengthening. We are still discussing health financing, how to pay for health care. A very important topic, and hopefully by the end of this year we will have come to some conclusions. We have asked for continued and enhanced links with the United Kingdom to support the medical staff with training and staff exchanges to strengthen our local workforce. In social services, we have asked for an increase in funding to social services to support vulnerable persons. We have asked for adult and child safeguarding posts to help us to protect vulnerable persons on this island. Social services also needs essential staff. Social services is a department with a very humanitarian team. They are presently overstretched and need additional support in order to continue to function normally. Montserrat's present situation, like in the rest of the world with an aging population, on Montserrat, our nursing homes are maximally full, and this has led to old persons in our communities not having adequate care at home. This is, if they're at home without adequate care, then we're putting their lives at risk. Many older persons are also spending long periods in hospital because there simply is not enough money to support them at home. And as a result, they are blocking acute beds and increasing the workload of our nurses who are presently understaffed and really struggling. So social services needs more money so that more people can be hired to look after our older persons at home. Under social services, we have also asked for more money to pay golden years workers whose salary is presently close to half of that of the maggots and workers. So we are allowing them to be impoverished if we do not improve on this. There is also talk of a merger between the two homes. For the money that the golden years requires, it should really be under government control. From where I sit, the nursing home needs to expand to accommodate an increasingly dependent population, increasingly elderly and dependent population. We have not asked for this yet. We expect that money from social services spent for medical evacuation for CT scanning will decrease as CT is now locally available. And additionally, Madam Speaker, if we achieve timely medical evacuation for our select time-critical cases, we will additionally reduce the cost of care as outcomes will be better, recovery will be faster, and we thus allow our affected patients to return to their livelihoods post-intervention as opposed to becoming dependents on the state with very heavy bills which very often fall back on the state. In closing, Madam Speaker, I would like to say thank you to all persons working or supporting all three teams, Education, Health, and Social Services. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. These are ministries in which outcomes affect us on a very deep level. And also, these ministries, health, education, and social services, are the foundation of any country. So we live in hope, Madam Speaker, as we await budget talks next month. Thank you.
Thank you too, Honorable Minister.
Government notices, unofficial notices, questions.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have a few questions here for the Honorable Premier. Question 1. When will the government resolve the issues surrounding the frequent electricity outages being experienced by residents, given that the initial target of 30 days to resolve them was not met? And what is the cost of addressing these issues?
Recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government of Montserrat and Mull have stabilized electricity generation, ensuring sufficient capacity to meet demand. If the honorable member is being honest with himself, he would have recognized that the frequency of power outages has been significantly reduced. We had an engineer on island within the time frame that he signified to enable this to happen. Some key updates. Generation is stable with key generators operational and solar PV contributing to daytime supply. The overhaul of generator number 7 is scheduled for mid-2025 to enhance long-term reliability. Repairs to generator number 3 are expected to be completed soon, adding further redundancy. The battery energy storage system remains offline, but renewable energy expansion remains a priority. Ongoing investments under the Priority Utility Program supports critical infrastructure upgrades and system resilience improvements. Rental of an auxiliary generator has been approved to provide temporary redundancy during the overhaul of generator number 7, ensuring reliability and reducing the risk of load shedding. Additionally, we expect to have an engineer on island for at least 12-month period to provide training support to the hard-working crew of Mull. Other investments in electricity reliability, the Small Capital Asset Fund, we are seeking to have funds approved under the SCAF for the procurement of infrared cameras and fault indicators to enhance grid monitoring and fault detection. The government remains committed to ensuring a stable and resilient power supply with ongoing investments in infrastructure and energy modernization.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, well, I thank the member for that answer. Supplementary. Didn't get the answer for the cost of addressing these issues. You did not give that answer.
Recognize the Honorable Premier.
As it relates to the cost of addressing these issues, those are being worked on, and those will be presented in the upcoming budget in March.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is the intention of government, or is it the intention of government to extend the duty-free concession on white goods to assist persons affected by the constant power outages and surges that contribute to loss of appliances within households and businesses beyond March?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, the government is taking a strategic approach to matters regarding the cost of imports, which includes white goods. When dealing with matters of taxation, we must always approach from a strategic perspective, rather than a reactionary one, as ad hoc or reactionary concessions impacts the delivery of critical services to the residents of Montserrat. There will be an announcement of this government's planned actions in the upcoming budget.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
To the Speaker, as Minister of Finance, what is the contracted amount of money for building the Little Bay Jetty, and how much has been paid to the construction company to date?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, the revised contract sum is $107.3 million. The amount expended as it relates to the contract is $64.3 million. Against this backdrop, we have been meeting with the company directors to find a way to get the project to completion, hopefully by the end of 2025.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Can the Honourable Minister of Access inform this Honourable House why ticket costs for passengers flying on Fly Montserrat and SVG are not subsidized while Winair has a subsidized contract arrangement?
Recognize the Honorable Minister for Access.
Madam Speaker, the government of Montserrat does not have the authority to regulate the pricing policies of private airlines. However, we have attempted to mitigate these costs through ticket subsidies, though this is not a sustainable long-term solution. For the next 12 months, we plan to implement a price cap arrangement with current airlines to reduce ticket prices subject to the availability of financing. Additionally, due to the absence of a ferry service during the high passenger traffic period in March, we have contracted, and may I repeat, contracted Winair to meet the increased demand. And there's a significant difference between contracted and providing a subsidy. Regarding the alleged subsidized arrangement with Winair, it appears that my honorable brother and colleague is informing us of such an arrangement. Nevertheless, we have contracted Winair to assist with the demand, and I can confirm that most seats are already booked, demonstrating the necessity of this measure. By the time the Winair contract was signed, local airlines were already fully booked. This allowed the government of Montserrat to alleviate the financial burden on passengers struggling to travel to and from Montserrat.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable Premier, can you confirm for me if the passengers on Fly Montserrat and SVG are receiving a subsidy for the tickets for the period from running up to March, this 2025?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, if I go back to the question, can the Honourable Minister of Access inform this Honourable House why ticket costs for passengers flying on Fly Montserrat SVG are not subsidized? I think I've responded to that question, and therefore I don't think the clarification which he's seeking is relevant.
Madam Speaker, with all due respect, the clarification is relevant. It's part of my original question, and I'm asking for confirmation whether or not these tickets were subsidized or not subsidized.
You asked why they were not subsidized.
I asked if they were subsidized or not subsidized. I did not even ask for the reason why they were not subsidized. All I simply asked for if the tickets for passengers traveling on SVG and Fly Montserrat were subsidized during the period leading up to the end of March.
Based on what I see here, it's asking for a reason. It asks why ticket costs for passengers.
Yes, so I'm asking, my
not
supplementary, I'm referring to the supplementary, is asking if they were subsidized or not.
Oh,
For confirmation whether they were subsidized or not.
okay. Honorable Minister? Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access, sorry.
Madam Speaker, I'm not seeking to duck the question, but the initial question reads, can the Honourable Minister of Access inform the Honourable House why ticket costs for passengers flying on Fly Montserrat and SVG are not subsidized? My question, in my view, responded to that, and according to the rules, if he needs further elucidation, I don't think that the question that he's asking as a supplementary is an elucidation to this question which he's asked.
Based on the original question, it seems as if you already know that they were not subsidized, though, because you're asking why they are not subsidized. So it seems as if you knew that they weren't subsidized. So you're asking the question again? Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did my job, I did my part. If the Premier don't wish to confirm whether they're subsidized or not, I guess he'll do that in a different forum. I'll move on. Question 5, can the Honorable Premier confirm the process used to appoint the Community Liaison Officer and the position of advisor to the Premier? Additionally, can the Premier state the salary attached to each post and whether the positions are funded from the consolidated fund?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, the first part of the question, I think, is misdirected within the Office of the Premier and its extensions. This matter does not fall under any of those ministerial responsibilities. However, the creation of the special advisor position was also recommended at a 2021 organizational review of the Office of the Premier, which it deemed it fit for a special advisor role to be established within the Premier's private office in order to address the lack of direct support to the Premier within our system here. The appointment of the advisor to the Premier is seen as a key requirement to provide high-level support in relation to policy, strategic support to the Premier, and this position is one which is well established in other governments regionally and internationally and is a politically appointed role. Upon taking office, the advisor role was established with the approval from the Office of the Deputy Governor, and the position is financed through the recurrent budget.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, through you to the Premier, question did ask the salaries associated with both positions. Didn't get a salary for any of them.
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, the salaries of public servants are coming from the recurrent budget. And sometimes, Madam Speaker, I wonder, why do we keep looking in the plate of others to see what others get? We're not talking policy issues, we're not talking policy decisions, but we want to see what our brothers and sisters get. And therefore, if the honorable member wishes to know what the salary is, have a call to the permanent secretary, and the permanent secretary will give you that response.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, while the Premier is free to do his rhetoric, my questions are asked and the answers are for the Parliament and the people of Montserrat. If the Premier wish to have the people of Montserrat call the permanent secretary,
I'm sorry, I was just about to tell him let's not have a debate on the...
that's why you should have stopped him when he had a debate about calling.
Madam Speaker, the honorable leader of the opposition by now should understand the rules of the House. If he has another question, kindly move on to the other question.
Let us all move on, please. I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, can the Honourable Minister of Finance provide an update on the status of the parliamentary building project, which was approved under the CPREG addendum by the previous government? Specifically, can the Honourable Premier confirm whether the funding previously assigned to the project is still secured or used on the project?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, there has been no significant progress on the parliamentary building project. And this is due to various factors, including, but not limited to, cost.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, the question asks to update on whether or not the funds that were secured for the project to date, if they've been secured to still use on the project. I didn't get the answer for that. In other words, if the Premier don't understand, I'm referring to the funds that were secured before he took government.
It seems as if he's looking for some information, so let's... Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, if there has been no progress on the parliamentary building, and the factors that are impacting it are related to cost, among other things, it clearly means that the funds are still there.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, my one supplementary to that is whether or not the government is actively seeking additional funding to make the project for the Parliament building a reality. I don't need to state the importance of the Parliament building. We are right here in Parliament as I speak.
Is that a supplementary?
Madam Speaker.
But that is asking for something different.
Is the supplementary allowed or not allowed, Madam Speaker? If it's not allowed, I'll sit.
Not that one.
I'll sit.
You want to answer it? Take your mic. Your mic. Recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I know that we had a a CPA training session last week.
Madam Speaker.
Please answer the question,
I am
Honorable
answering
Premier.
the question, Madam Speaker. He can't tell me.
No, Madam Speaker, my point of order, Madam Speaker.
What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, you say my supplementary was not allowed, so I sit. I'm moving on to another question. So let the Premier sit.
Okay. Let us leave that one. Let us leave that one. Can you move on, please?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I now move on to ministers who wish to answer questions. Madam Speaker, I do have a question for the Honourable Minister of Buildings, Utilities, Infrastructure, Labour and Transportation. Can the Honourable Minister please advise why the private contractors previously employed for verge cutting on the main road are now replaced by government workers?
Recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. The Public Works Department has improved the frequency of verge cutting along the main road in response to increased regrowth by utilizing its own staff. This approach allows for better scheduling, consistency, and efficiency in maintaining Montserrat's primary artery road, ensuring that the road network remains clear and visually appealing. The private contractors previously employed for verge cutting on the main road have completed their contracts as budgeted, with some even being paid for an additional cut. With the Public Works Department budget for this activity now fully utilized, the decision to use in-house staff ensures continuity in maintaining the verges. Private contractors remain engaged in the process as they will continue to have opportunities to bid for verge cutting on B and C roads, and where necessary, may be co-opted to assist on the main road. This strategy aligns with our broader vision of positioning Montserrat as a five-star destination, ensuring that our island is presented at its best at all times, while also taking financial constraints into account.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can the Minister explain the reason for the most recent power outages?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Built.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Between 12th and 14th February 2025, the power outages were caused by high winds, which triggered multiple temporary line faults and system protection shutdowns. Strong gusts increased tree branch and the power lines movement, leading to short circuits and dislodgement of infrastructure components. The outages were particularly concentrated in the north, where above-ground transmission and distribution infrastructure is more exposed to harsh environmental conditions. Despite these challenges, electricity generation has remained stable over the past several months. It is the intention, and it is important to note, that system protection shutdowns are automatic safety measures designed to prevent further damage. I would like to commend the dedicated efforts of the MUL linesmen and other workers who worked under extreme, challenging conditions to restore power quickly once the faults were identified. Their commitment ensures that disruptions are minimized. Recognizing the ongoing vulnerability of above-ground power lines, the government remains committed to improving grid resilience. This includes continuing efforts to transition more infrastructure underground, particularly in the northern region, to mitigate future outages and enhance system reliability.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank the Minister for answering the questions. Madam Speaker, I move on to the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Land, Housing, Environment and Sports.
Can the Honourable Minister of Sports advise of any plans to assist cricketers to travel to Antigua to play hardball cricket, considering that for many years there has been no local hardball league played on Montserrat? And since arrangements for cricketers who traveled to Antigua in the past to play in the Antigua League ceased due to the high cost of travel.
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Sports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the past, with the lower cost of travel afforded to the use of government-subsidized travel, cricketers were assisted with their travels to play hardball cricket on the weekends. This support has dwindled, given the now relatively high cost of air travel, along with associated maintenance expenses. However, Madam Speaker, the Sports Department has aided players with financial support to attend overseas camps, and consequently, we now have a member of the Leeward Islands Hurricane Squad. Madam Speaker, resources have also been committed to the Montserrat Cricket Association, the MCA, for preparation for Leeward Islands tournaments scheduled for May to July of 2025. The players have met with the MCA and myself and are enthusiastic about representing Montserrat. Madam Speaker, the department is also preparing a draft sports calendar for all sports to include both local and overseas events. The reason for this calendar is to help better forecast and budget for the overall development of our athletes, to include overseas travel for, but not limited to, the cricketers, since this was specified in the question.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you for given the growing concerns about moral decline among our youth. Can the Honourable Minister outline the government strategy to counter negative influences and behaviours? Specifically, what policies or programs are being implemented to promote positive values, strengthen character development, and provide constructive guidance for young people in schools and the wider community?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of...
Madam Speaker, I could give a Dr. Buffon-esque response to this question, but I tried to make it as short as possible. Madam Speaker, the government of Montserrat recognizes the growing concerns about the moral decline among our youth, and as part of our ongoing commitment to fostering a positive environment for the next generation, we have outlined a comprehensive set of strategies aimed at addressing these concerns. First one, the educational reform and values integration. We are working closely with the Ministry of Education to integrate values-based education into the school curricula. This includes programs designed to teach critical life skills such as empathy, responsibility, and respect for others. We believe that promoting positive character development from an early age will help our youth navigate the challenges of a modern society. We also have the youth engagement programs. This government, Madam Speaker, is expanding youth engagement initiatives that provide safe spaces for our young people to explore their interests in sports, arts, and community service. These programs, like the newly accredited apprenticeship program, will integrate a supply-side component with a demand-side intervention to create an environment which is conducive for the creation of new jobs, while improving the quality of existing jobs geared at youth retention. Madam Speaker, not only will our youth be well equipped to work, whether as employees or as self-employed young persons, but the qualifications which comes with this work-based training will make them well prepared for job interviews and marketable for professional careers. Additionally, enhanced sports programs geared at self-discipline, critical thinking, sportsmanship, and self-esteem will form part of the many attributes for creating well-rounded young persons on Montserrat. Madam Speaker, we also have the strengthening family support systems. In recognizing the importance of the family unit, Madam Speaker, in shaping youth behaviors, This government is committed to increasing support for family counseling services, parenting workshops, and programs designed to strengthen the bond between parents and children. We also have collaboration with non-governmental organizations, NGOs. The government has partnered with NGOs and the private sector to support youth mentorship and rehabilitation through the on-the-job training programs and capacity building workshops. Because of Madam Speaker, mental health awareness and support, mental health is also a key factor in the well-being of our youth. To address the underlying causes of behavioral issues, this government is increasing access to mental health services and awareness campaigns aimed at destigmatizing mental health challenges. Madam Speaker, we believe that by addressing the emotional and psychological needs of our youth, we can reduce the likelihood of engaging in harmful behaviors. Madam Speaker, in this vein, the reintegration into society for ex-offenders, the RISE program, is aimed at supporting former inmates in their reintegration process, reducing recidivism, and that's a tendency for a convicted criminal to reoffend, and fostering safer, more resilient communities. RISE focuses on providing essential resources, skills training, and support networks to help former inmates rebuild their lives and contribute positively to society. The program aims at reintegrating ex-offenders into society through a phased approach. The pre-release phase, which focuses on preparing the individual for return to society. This involves counseling, skills development, planning for housing and job placement. The transition phase begins immediately following the release from prison. This involves providing support and guidance to ex-prisoners within the early days and weeks of re-entry into the community. And the post-release phase, Madam Speaker, ongoing access to supportive services for ex-offenders, which includes training and development sessions and classes. Madam Speaker, we also have our public awareness campaigns. We are committed to launching enhanced public campaigns that highlight the dangers of negative influences, such as substance abuse, violence, and online exploitation. Through mass media, social media platforms, and community outreach, we aim to educate both youth and parents about the potential dangers and the importance of making responsible choices. Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the Honourable Dorset Hector would like this one, the legislation and law enforcement side of things. This government will also enforce laws designed to protect our young people from exploitation and harm, especially in the areas related to cyberbullying, substance abuse, and exposure to inappropriate content. We are also working on strengthening partnerships with law enforcement to ensure that these laws are properly upheld. We will also promote positive role models, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the Honourable, the Honourable opposition leader and opposition member would be quite a willing part of this. But by highlighting success stories and positive role models in various sectors of society, such as sports, education, and entrepreneurship, this government aims to inspire young people to strive for excellence and make good choices. Finally, Madam Speaker, based on this government's one Montserrat approach to our beloved island's development, we believe that by working together, we can provide our youth with the tools they need to thrive and make responsible choices, thus countering negative influences, building a stronger, more resilient Montserrat society to our deliberate efforts at youth retention. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for his comprehensive answer, and I do hope and wish him all the best in terms of a successful implementation. Madam Speaker, next question is, what are the government plans for the strip of land in Little Bay spanning from Pontines to Bossalime, presently occupied by several local businesses, and will those businesses be incorporated into those development plans by being allowed to stay and operate in their present location?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Lands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in short, there are no concrete plans has been made at this time for that specific area. However, Madam Speaker, I think it would be the wish of any government to want the best development for its country. That could be upgrades to the businesses currently along the beach, or even a yacht marina as an idea that has floated around our communities for years before my tenure. Madam Speaker, this government has promised to embark on a one Montserrat project, which even the opposition will have a chance to give input on. Needless to say, the ideas for Little Bay, on a whole, are expansive and will be driven by opportunity and access to financing, with the input of persons who wish to be stakeholders in the development of the island. Madam Speaker, at this point, I wish to notify the House that the Honourable Leader of Opposition chaired a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association UK CPA seminar on cross-party collaboration. So I'm sure, Madam Speaker, that he will be more than willing to share his ideas for the development of this area.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the
Yes,
Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Honourable Minister for his answer. And just for clarification from the original question, whatever together the opposition and the government plan for Little Bay, I just want to ask the Minister if it is intention that the present operators, if they so wish, would be allowed to remain and operate on the site. And I know he would be willing to provide an answer that would be appropriate.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Lands.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I don't know if the Honourable Opposition Leader will call this response appropriate. But I think he would understand, one, the term collective responsibility, and two, the term inherited responsibility. Madam Speaker, I came into government, and I'll talk about the inherited responsibility first. I came into government and met some issues in the area along the lines of people that are approaching squatters' rights issues, which stemmed about 8 or 9 years ago. So I don't need to do the calculation, so the honourable member would know which government those would have originated in. So I won't go any further into that. Those are the issues that I'm seeking to fix currently, and I think I would have answered his original question, his supplementary question in my original response about not actually having any plans for that area currently. Thank you.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, applying wisdom, I assume that the Minister means that those who are squatting, he would ensure that they have legal rights. I'll move on to the questions to the next Minister. With your permission, Madam Speaker.
Yes, go ahead.
To the Honourable Minister of Education, Health and Social Services. Is there any financial allowance and health and safety gears currently being provided to staff of the Environmental Health Department who are exposed to hazardous materials in their line of duty?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I would like to firstly thank the hard-working staff of the Environmental Health Department of the Ministry of Health. The challenges of working in the roles in this department are great and are beyond which normal government workers would face. Presently, protective health and safety gear required by environmental health staff are provided by the Ministry, and to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that there's a problem with this. However, the staff have been asking for a hazardous allowance for some time, which has not yet been provided. A hazardous allowance is an additional pay component given to employees of environmental health due to the inherent risks, due to the inherent risks and the potential exposure to hazardous substances that they face while performing their duties. This includes exposure to pollutants, chemicals, or unhygienic material. And this is something for us to strongly consider. On Montserrat, the actual pay received in health roles is very low. Therefore, this allowance would be a very good way to support environmental health workers in their roles.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, through the Minister, I'm not sure if I missed it, but I did ask also about the health and safety gears provided. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I
Yes,
mentioned it, that health and safety gear are provided by the ministry, and I don't think that's a problem at this point, unless you know of something differently. Happy to hear.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Minister. I move on to the next question. Given the growing learning gap, particularly in reading among our boys, can the Honorable Minister outline the government's policy initiatives to address this issue? And what targeted interventions are being implemented to improve literacy and ensure the boys receive the necessary support to succeed?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Factors negatively affecting learning in schools on Montserrat include teacher and teaching assistant shortages in the schools, inadequate after-school programs which will allow students to catch up, failure for us to identify and support students with special educational needs over generations, failure to adequately manage and support students with behavioral problems in school, and the economic and social struggle of parents. This government's targeted policy initiatives to support students with the learning process are large, require additional staffing and funding. These initiatives include a teacher retention program which addresses remuneration and continued professional development, the hiring of teaching assistants, the commencement of a special educational needs program with the right legal and policy framework, special educational needs staffing, and after-school programs to support students. These programs offer support to all students. To home in specifically on boys warrants the awareness of the gap. And I thank you for this question, which I believe, Madam Speaker, that Honourable Lewis has posed, which is truly aimed at highlighting the problem in boys and reading and finding solutions. Ensuring that our boys are being taught with specific focus, ensuring that teaching programs are interesting and suitable enough for them to be engaged in, ensuring that reading programs are linked with real-life experiences aimed at motivating boys, ensuring that school libraries contain books which would interest them, ensuring that our boys are included in after-school reading programs and that they take advantage of the opportunities at the public library are all initiatives which, going forward, should have a positive impact on reading in this group of children and in their learning in general. We also want to ensure that the summer school programs help all students to catch up, including boys, and that the continued professional development of teachers, including this continued professional development during summer programs, includes assistance on how to encourage and teach reading and comprehension with the additional special emphasis on boys. Boys clubs through community centers, schools, or the library will also be extremely useful in instilling discipline, behavior, and a love of learning. Truly, thank you for that question, Honourable Lewis.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I truly thank the Minister for such a comprehensive answer. And Madam Speaker, I don't even know if I want to ask the question because it's a sensitive question, but I have to ask it because people have been pressing me to ask the question. But I know it's sensitive. I discussed it with the Minister before I even sent in the question. In light of the growing concerns about incidents of sexual misconduct at the secondary school, can the Honourable Minister outline the government policy initiatives to address these issues? Specifically, what measures are being implemented to ensure a safe learning environment for all students, including prevention programs, support services for affected students, and disciplinary protocols for offenders? As I said, I know it's a very sensitive question, but it's a question that merits an answer.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sexual misconduct has been a long ignored problem at the Montserrat Secondary School. And I thank the Honourable Member again for his question, which highlights this extremely troubling problem. Unfortunately, this misconduct includes both misconduct among the students themselves, but also includes abuse by adults who have preyed on MSS students for generations. Policy initiatives being taken by the Ministry of Education to address the problem of sexual misconduct include the following. We plan to improve surveillance at the Montserrat Secondary School. As a ministry, we've been asking for security cameras on the MSS compound to monitor activity, to deter behavioral problems, and to help with determining the main perpetrators. We anxiously await funding for this. We also continue to encourage security officers in their monitoring of the compound. Unfortunately, the layout of the MSS makes this challenging, and we are strongly considering increasing the count of security officers. We have planned a multi-agency approach as we go forward to determine what is best practice for the MSS and what level of input is needed. This involves involvement of the police and social services and warrants heavy discussion regarding what level of security we actually need on the compound. Do police personnel need to be on the compound at all times? Specific professionals such as the clinical psychologist and guidance counselors are essential at the schools in managing and guiding both offenders and victims. I am sure that you're aware that the consequences of sexual abuse are serious and warrant professional intervention. Child offenders, in addition to the involvement of the police and legal action that is necessary, also require psychosocial support, as they too may have been subjects of abuse in the past and need this support to make sure they continue to have good mental health and also to protect them from reoffending. We also need to make sure that there is surveillance and monitoring of persons who have offended to prevent reoffense. The Government of Montserrat is hiring a child safeguarding officer to help with the planning and implementation of our approach to protecting children, and will help with the creation of pathways for managing and preventing persons from offending or reoffending. And they will help with the writing of safeguarding policies and protocols. The rejuvenation of the Child Safeguarding Board is a targeted initiative of the ministry to protect children in our schools and to protect children in our communities.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, I want to thank the Minister for a comprehensive answer to a difficult question. My own is supplementary, so to speak. I realize it's a tough topic, heavy topic. I mean, is there, in your opinion, if there is any assistance that you think you need that you all haven't already have in your position?
You know, questions should not seek opinions, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, I remove the opinion. I'll ask the question again. Do you believe there's any further assistance that you require other than what's already provided to help with the situation?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think as we go forward, that because this is an extremely sensitive topic and the question of security and level of security is something that persons in our communities will have strong opinions on. So I think as we go forward in terms of how best to control behavior at the Montserrat Secondary School, including that sort of misconduct, it's going to need a lot of discussion with community, and we welcome the input of opposition in terms of your opinions for what we should do as we go forward.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to all the members of the government side who answered the questions. And that's the end of my question.
Thank you.
Including the Premier, even though he advised some of them.
Recognize the Honourable Romeo, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the Honourable Minister of Access tell this Honourable House what the monthly cost to contract WINEA for the months of February and March 2025 is for each month?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, I'll give the cost in US dollars and convert them to EC in total, if you don't mind, since the contract is in US dollars. February, $27,300. March, $252,700. for a total of $280,000 US. For ease of reference, the total sum is 756,000 EC dollars.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
A supplemental, please, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one 19-seater cannot replace a 100 or 200-seater passenger ferry.
Excuse me?
I'm
You're seeking information
Yes, I am.
from his answers?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I just prefaced it with that. And may I repeat then? A 19-seater cannot replace 100 or 200 passenger ferry. And many who book their tickets are now cancelling because there's not enough airlift. So my question, my supplemental to the Premier is, has your contract with Premier used up all of the funds allotted for air access? Or are there some further funds that can be allotted or could have been allotted to provide additional airlift with SVG's Twin Otter?
Excuse me, Honorable. You asked a question for the costs, and he provided the costs. And in your preamble, you started an argument which should not be one that it cannot be. Okay, so let's avoid that. Let us hear a supplementary based on the answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Premier just outlined the cost for the contract for Winia for the months of February and March. Can he tell us whether that cost has used up all of the funds available for access and whether there are any further funds available to hire a Twin Otter from Winia or otherwise?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, I struggle to understand what elucidation means. And as a consequence, his supplementary is not seeking elucidation. He's seeking to ask a further substantive question. And I think based on the rules of the House, which he ought to know by now, if he needed to ask that substantive question, then ask it.
I'm afraid I have to agree with the Minister, so I can't allow that supplementary.
And I agree too, Madam Speaker. I just hoped he would have wanted to answer it. Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question. The previous government began the process of procuring a ferry for the 2025 St. Patrick's period. Can you tell this Honourable House, Honourable Minister, how much was allotted to cover the costs of procuring that ferry and why the plans or effort to procure a ferry for the 2025 St. Patrick's period was abandoned?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, I have addressed this matter before in this Honourable House. In this current period of the legislature, be it just 2 months, but I will, however, respond again. Upon assuming office, I did not receive any updates from the former Premier regarding any budget allocation for the ferry referenced by the Honourable Romeo, nor any details on the plans or efforts to procure said ferry. There was mention of an invitation to tender, but the report indicated that none of the bidders met the required standards due to lack of certification.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A supplemental, please. The Honourable Premier just admitted that there was an invitation to tender. So my question is, according to procurement rules, in order to set out an invitation to tender, you'd have to have monies allotted to provide for such a positive result, if you got one, to that invitation to tender. Therefore, are you saying that there was an invitation to tender and there were no monies allotted to provide for the ferry should the tenders have been acceptable?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, if you'll permit me to answer the question thoroughly, would you? The Honorable former Premier had indicated that he had permission to access a ferry for the tune of $17 million. Said that on Radio Montserrat. But he came back subsequently to say he was just joking. There was no such funds in the budget, nor any funds available. As it relates to the ITT, I have not seen any indication that funds were made available within the budget or to the knowledge of the Financial Secretary that there were funds approved for any budget, for any ferry.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Honorable Premier, for that answer. My next question to the Honorable Minister of Access. Considering that it could take 3 to 6 months to procure a ferry, has the government of Montserrat made any moves or begun the process of procuring a ferry for the December 2025 Christmas and 2026 St. Patrick's season? 26.
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Access.
Madam Speaker, once again, the honorable member should know from his experience, I hope, that nothing can be confirmed until the budget has been passed. Yes, we're continuing to have discussions and negotiations on a range of possibilities, but we cannot give any indication of what may be committed because funds have not yet been approved.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. My next question is for the Honourable Minister of Build, and that is, everywhere I go, constituents ask me what is happening with the Little Bay Port project. Could the Honourable Minister give us a time frame in which the Little Bay Port project will get going and be completed?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Romeo. The port has not stopped. The government of Montserrat recognizes the public's keen interest in the progress of the Little Bay Port Development Project, and rightfully so. Construction began on 9th of June 2022 with an original completion date of 4th of January 2024, later revised to 15th of January 2025, which has now passed. This project remains a high priority, and we are fully committed to seeing it through to successful completion. Therefore, we continue to work closely with our partners, including the UK government, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the project contractor, to address the challenges that have arisen. These include delays in resolving claims, equipment breakdowns, adverse weather conditions which we have no control over, shortages of material, staff, and financials. Due to the sensitive nature of ongoing discussions, specific details cannot be provided at this time. Additionally, we continue discussions at the highest levels with the contractors, directors, and project management teams to resolve these challenges and regain momentum. To strengthen oversight and ensure better project governance, the government has established a Strategic Project Portfolio Board chaired by the Financial Secretary. The SPBP, which is a Strategic Project Portfolio Board, brings together key government officials, including the ministers, project stakeholders, and representatives from the FCDU to oversee major projects like the port development. We want to assure the public and to the honorable members of this House that we are working diligently to advance the port project in a responsible and sustainable manner. Updates will be provided as soon as it is appropriate, while respecting the confidentiality required for key resolution matters. We appreciate the public's patience and understanding as we continue working to deliver this critical infrastructure project for Montserrat.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A supplemental, if you may. Can the Honourable Minister tell this Honourable House how the opposition can support her ministry to see that the port project is put right and get going towards being completed?
Recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we have said earlier, we participated in our parliamentary seminar which spoke of cross-party collaboration. I thank the honourable member for the offer, but I must at this point acknowledge that we have a very competent team which will be able to pursue the port project, and successfully so. I thank him, and should we need any assistance, I will call on him, but not at this time.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question is for the Honourable Minister of Education and Health. In recent years, horrid fights between students have taken place in open view, including one at a public sports day event, sometimes circulated by video online. This problem seems to be out of control. Can the Honourable Minister of Education tell this Honourable House how she plans to address this sad and recurring situation at the Montserrat Secondary School?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the question, Honourable Romeo. Inappropriate behaviour of all forms appear to be rampant at the Montserrat Secondary School. Comparing our situation with the other territories, it makes it clear that at the present point, something must be done. Other Caribbean education ministers describe gang violence and weapons in and around their schools. As we directly address this problem, the wider problems affecting behaviour also need to be addressed, as said earlier, filling teacher and teaching assistant gaps, identifying and supporting students with extra academic needs, investing in after-school programs to guide and support our children, and social support to parents. Behavioural problems will have to be addressed through a wide multidisciplinary approach involving education and health officials and the police. The problem does appear to be out of control. Some teachers believe that there needs to be a military approach to discipline at the Montserrat Secondary School, as they have witnessed behavioural problems spiral to its present level. Some have suggested a role for the Defence Force or the police in the MSS, or the need for a principal at the MSS who will take a more military approach. This will all warrant further discussion, including community discussions, as said earlier, to ensure that the approach taken is acceptable to most persons on island. Softer and more general approaches which are already in place include the following. There are 3 safety officers employed at the school, and the school benefits from the presence of community beat officers of the Royal Montserrat Police Force who support monitoring of the compound at key periods during the school day, and perhaps the presence of both security officers and police can be increased. The MSS has behaviour management guidelines, so the school attempts to strictly enforce rules and tries to reward students for good behaviour. However, I know of several cases of bad behaviour on the part of students reported by teachers at the school, and they have not felt that action has been taken to correct the behaviour of the students. It's really essential that all reports about behaviour are dealt with appropriately. Indiscipline and bad behaviour in general obviously can make the life of a teacher unbearable, and obviously interferes with the learning process, Madam Speaker, of all persons in the classroom. Additional school counsellors have been employed to assist with behaviour at the school, and it is hoped that individual and small group counseling sessions will be found useful. The school is attempting to instill appropriate social skills and etiquette through personal, moral, and social education classes. Students' rights and responsibilities are also a focus in these classes. The Montserrat Secondary School has tried to keep parents abreast of behavioral challenges experienced at the school and the consequences for their children should they breach the rules. Unfortunately, many parents are able to enforce good behavior in their homes, but describe that once with their peers, their own children tend to act differently. The MSS attempts to remind students of the rules and in their subject classes, and has also given them a voice to express their concerns, as well as to plan activities that will improve their social skills in general. Continued professional development sessions have been conducted for teachers focusing on the management of student behavior and on challenging behaviors which may be displayed in some students. The most recent intervention was done by the child and adolescent clinical psychologist who focused on how to manage students who have ADHD, for example.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supplementary, if you will allow. Yes?
Let's hear it.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, can the Honourable Minister tell this Honourable House whether she's willing to receive and consider suggestions provided by the opposition as part of our consultation? Suggestions that may help in curbing the number and type of fights being experienced at the Montserrat Secondary School.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Absolutely, Honourable Romeo, we definitely will embrace the opinions of the opposition. I think we need an island-wide approach to how we target this, and I do honour the honourable members' one Montserrat concept. There are not going to be elections for another 4 years, and until then we are Team Montserrat. So yes, we welcome your suggestions as how to move forward with this.
Recognize the Honourable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question for the same minister. Over the past 3 months, several people were medevaced overseas for urgent care. Can the Minister of Education... No, I'll ask a question on education instead. I'll follow the question on education. Is that what you prefer? Yes, I'll ask on education. Can the Honourable Minister of Education tell this Honourable House specifically how many teachers are missing from the needed full complement and what is being done to fix this serious problem?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My response to this question was deemed a little bit too frank and straightforward. Thus, I have a response from the ministry. And the response goes as such. Subject teachers are required for IT, for English, and for French. The posts have been advertised. There are numerous challenges which the ministry faces in hiring teachers. Many will not come to Montserrat because of the low salaries and high cost of living. In order to keep teaching services going, the ministry has focused on hiring temporary teachers until the issues of salary and other aspects of working conditions can be addressed with new funding. The ministry also is actively exploring the option of hiring teachers to teach electronically, but we face the challenge of additional costs in doing so. Once adequate funding and other logistics are provided to utilize this option, we fully intend to press on with this area in order to prevent the obvious learning loss which is presently occurring. So the answer is 3.
Recognize the Honourable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the interest of Team Montserrat, I shared with the Honourable Minister an answer given by the Deputy Governor and the Government of Montserrat in 2021 that I think is still relevant. Could you please share that answer with us and the public and tell me
Honourable Romer, I cannot share your answer to your question in the House.
No, not my answer. The answer given
No,
by...
no,
Okay.
honourable member.
Okay.
The supplementary must be based on the answer that she gave.
Ask the question in a different way. In 2021, the Deputy Governor stated that the situation of
Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
Yes, honourable member.
Is that a supplementary or is it a substantive question which has been submitted previously?
Recognize the Honourable Romeo.
if he will allow the question, he would know whether it's a supplemental or not.
Well, let it be based on the response that the Honourable Minister of Education provided.
It is based on the question and the response, Madam Speaker. In 2021-2022, the Deputy Governor and the Governor of Montserrat.
Madam Speaker, again, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
A supplementary based on the rules of this House seeks elucidation. The honourable member is seeking to bring new matters into the question. And if in fact he had a specific question on that issue, he should then have raised it as a specific question, but clearly not a supplementary.
Honourable Romeo, I must draw your attention to order number 26 on supplementary questions. And at last month I read it out, and I'm going to read it again. The reply to any question shall be conclusive, and no speech or debate on the reply should be allowed. But any member may, with the permission of the Speaker, put a supplementary question for the purpose of further elucidating any matter of fact not made clear to him by the reply. But a supplementary question must not be used to introduce matter not included in the original question. And based on where you were going with your question, I will not allow that supplementary. Recognize the Honourable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question to the Honourable Minister of Education and Health. Can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this Honourable House of the progress being made to have a dialysis machine in place as promised?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ministry of Health will be working with the non-governmental organisation Helping Hands of Glendon on moving forward towards the commencement of a dialysis program for Montserrat. In 2024, Helping Hands of Glendon facilitated a visit from...
Excuse me, please, Honourable Minister. Honourable Romeo, if you'll pay attention to the answers, maybe you wouldn't have to ask the questions that you're asking. So please pay attention.
In 2024, Madam Speaker, the Helping Hands of Glendon facilitated a visit from Bridge of Life. Bridge of Life is the non-profit arm of one of the largest dialysis providers in the world. This NGO has performed dialysis in countries all over the world, including very impoverished countries. They have done an analysis on Montserrat's current situation, and they've prepared a budget for what it would cost us with their help, which is a fraction of what it would cost in real terms. Dialysis has been a 12-year ask for the people of Montserrat. Health workers will recall our disappointment 10 years ago when a UK Montserrat charity offered to send 4 dialysis machines to Montserrat free of cost, and the government of Montserrat at the time said, no, thank you. In end-stage kidney disease, the kidneys are unable to filter the blood and remove waste, and this results in the accumulation of waste in the bloodstream with a decline in general health until death occurs, unless renal replacement therapy or dialysis or renal transplant can be provided. The rate of decline in renal function varies from patient to patient. The cost of receiving dialysis in the region for 1 year at full cost is over 3 times as much as what it would cost to provide dialysis locally for patients. This is not even including the input of the charity. Not to mention the cost and inconvenience of travel of those persons with kidney failure or the inconvenience of relocation. Presently on Montserrat, persons with end-stage kidney disease must either migrate to the UK or they must die on Montserrat. Diabetes and hypertension are the most common causes of end-stage kidney disease. Looking at the over 60 age group, please note that 60% of Caribbean persons in the over 60 age group is diabetic and hypertensive. The prevalence of chronic kidney disease in our region is 12 to 13%, which is higher than the global median of 9.5%. And Caribbean people are also considered at increased risk of kidney disease through the APOL1 gene from our West African ancestry. And this is very significant, as 86% of our local population are primarily of West African descent. Primary health care on Montserrat has been exemplary in providing free diabetic and hypertensive clinics. The government has provided cheap and free relevant testing needed for the management of these conditions over many years, and medications for diabetes and hypertension and also high cholesterol are also free for Montserratians and cheap for non-nationals. Despite prevention and treatment programs that have been in place for years, we are still very high risk as a people for end-stage kidney disease, and the provision of renal support, now 40 years since the recognition of this phenomenon, is essential.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question for the Minister, the next question is, can the Honorable Minister of Health tell this Honorable House what will be done to support nurses on Montserrat, especially when we are losing our competent and committed but frustrated nurses year after year?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To address this issue, the Ministry of Health is committed to the following. The Ministry is presently recruiting to fill vacant nursing positions. In 2023, under the previous administration, that's under MCAP with the Honourable Cranston Buffon, in 2023, the nurses received a 100% increase in their payment for nursing sessions. These sessions are essential, and there are extra shifts that are optional for individual nurses, but they're essential for completion of the duty roster. So because they don't have enough nurses, the duty roster would be empty if they didn't put on extra shifts. The extra shifts are optional, but nurses who do them are paid extra for them. The payment obviously is welcomed, but does not help with the exhaustion and the overwork. Presently, exhausted and overworked nurses cover these sessions. The nurses have the commitment of the present administration to covering the cost of nursing sessions. Although from a financial point of view, the ministry sees these sessions as expensive, we would like to note that our nurses on Montserrat are worth every penny. We hope to eventually have an adequate number of nurses on island, but unfortunately, just as with the teaching profession, low salaries and high cost of living make Montserrat a difficult place for persons to say yes to when considering employment here as a nurse. Suggestions have been made to add a professional allowance to the salaries of nurses and teachers, as they are indeed professionals and they are definitely essential ones. We do not have an answer to this yet. The ministry also hopes to create new nursing positions, that is, creating opportunities for specialist nursing. At present, there are 3 nurses who are out pursuing further education. one who's studying nurse anesthesiology to become a nurse anesthetist, one studying geriatric nursing, and one who has received a Chevening scholarship to study counselling in mental health. Our partnership with UK universities will offer additional opportunities for nurses this year. As a minister with an undying passion for improvements in emergency medicine, I hope to one day soon realize the dream of having emergency nurses in our emergency department at our new hospital. That's nurses who have had specific training and experience in emergency medicine, and this will help with the management of our time-critical cases. We also hope to improve on how we manage our stroke and cardiac patients. If we could one day receive training to have a stroke nurse and a cardiology nurse who will improve quality of care in these areas. On the National Health Service, Madam Speaker, patients with ischemic stroke are often mostly initially managed by stroke nurses with a consultant who is often available only remotely. And this includes the stroke nurse administering medications for thrombolysis with the stroke consultant being in the room. So there's also presently, a role for a critical care nurse coordinator. I'm uncertain as to whether or not this role is being presently advertised. At any rate, the pay grade is the problem. This may not be suitable for a nurse who is qualified and experienced at that level, but should be. So in summary, Madam Speaker, to answer the question, we intend to continue supporting nurses in terms of nursing sessions. We intend to push for things like professional allowances or tax breaks for nurses, and we intend to support them with continued professional development so that they can grow and continue their contribution to our health service.
I recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question to the Honourable Minister of Health is, can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this Honourable House how many patients on the island have had strokes and heart attacks over the past year, and whether there are acceptable protocols in place to deal with this experience?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It looks like Honourable Romeo was following United Alliance's campaign trail more closely than we imagined, but we thank you for that. The report from the ministry is that over the past year that there have been 12 patients with strokes, who have had strokes, and 6 patients with heart attacks. Please note that in terms of cause of death, a recent study puts diabetes and cardiovascular disease as the cause of death in 59% of cases at Glendon Hospital. The hospital is presently working on its protocols for the management of persons with stroke that are current and similar to that used by the international medical community in order to achieve best outcome for stroke patients. We are thankful that Glendon Hospital finally has a CT scanner, as this has been a 15-year ask. Thankfully, this has, over the past 3 months, allowed for the local diagnosis of stroke, allowing for adherence to international guidelines which specify immediate CT on presenting with stroke symptoms. Over the past 2 weeks, the ministry has also received clot-busting medication, alteplase, required for thrombolysis in stroke. I would like to thank the doctors at Glendon who have asked for this for quite a long period and who have really struggled to work without it. I honor the commitment of our doctors to working on Montserrat despite all, and just to let them know that the Ministry of Health intends to further improve their ability to manage patients. Doctors need current diagnostic equipment, Madam Speaker, and need current medication in order to appropriately manage patients, and I believe we are slowly but surely getting there. It is essential, additionally, that the health team have the advice of stroke consultants in a tertiary facility that is nearby. That is the closest acceptable tertiary facility. And the reason for this is that certain categories of stroke will still warrant medical evacuation for that facility, Thus, the facility nearby, thus if the facility is nearby, it allows for the transfer of patients within an hour or two. Delays beyond a few hours will result in permanent disability or death, Madam Speaker. So this aspect of care with liaising with a nearby hospital that we can get to in quick time, who can help with the management of these time-critical cases, is essential. Our protocol for the management of heart attacks is currently under review. It is essential that Glendon stays current, following international standards of care, as this is the only way to continue to improve on the quality of care that we provide. Most of the problems we have experienced in the past involved not having current medication. This has been solved, and major delays in medical evacuation, making it impossible to give patients the proper standard of care that they require. Now that current clot-busting medication is available on island, our doctors will be happier and will be more confident, as this will increase the chances of our patients surviving heart attacks. As with stroke, many of our heart attack patients will still warrant medical evacuation for coronary artery reperfusion, mechanical reperfusion. Delays in and this must be done in a timely manner. Delays in medical evacuation, again, in heart attacks, where reperfusion with alteplase does not occur, results in cardiac failure as heart muscle dies off and ultimately death of the patient. The purpose of medical evacuation in ischemic stroke, sorry, I just said this, and in heart attack is for the possibility of mechanical intervention to assist with reperfusion, and for both cases must be done in a timely manner. Hemorrhagic stroke, Madam Speaker, where the person is bleeding in the brain, is another example of patients that will warrant quick medical evacuation, as sometimes underlying a hemorrhagic stroke is an aneurysmal bleed that can be repaired if we get the patient across in a timely manner.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question to our Minister of Education is that the United Alliance promised a reduction in amputation rates in patients with circulatory problems on Montserrat. Can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this Honourable House what steps have been or will be taken to improve this situation?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ministry of Health has engaged a vascular surgeon and a vascular sonographer, and we are awaiting funds in the new financial year to start an intense program in which all of our patients who are at risk will be assessed. Our population, with large numbers of patients with diabetes and hypertension, are at major risk of circulatory problems involving the lower limbs. Damage to the blood vessels, taking blood to the legs and feet over time, results in reduced blood flow or reduced circulation to the legs. When this becomes critical, the tissues beyond this area die off, and this puts the patient at risk of death, thus warranting an emergency type amputation to prevent death. Our vascular clinics, destined to begin once the budget has been passed, will tackle the problem at the level of the blood vessels before it reaches a critical stage. So timely intervention at the level of the blood vessels can restore circulation or blood flow to the lower limbs and thus negate the need for an amputation.
I recognize the Honourable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My next question to the Honourable Minister. Over the past 3 months, several people were medevaced overseas for urgent care. Can the Honourable Minister tell this Honourable House what main challenges she has faced with medevacs since she has been elected?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Difficult and saddening question, challenging response. The barriers to achieving timely medical evacuation have been as follows. The primary problems have been failure to have patients accepted by an appropriate tertiary facility nearby, combined with marked limitations in arranging emergency travel off island. Montserrat's present situation regarding medical evacuation is uniquely flawed by our present air travel rules. So off-island travel between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. is not allowed, even in an emergency, as per rules set by the Air Safety Support International, that's ASI. And most staffed and equipped medical evacuation aircrafts, due to the specification of the aircrafts, are not allowed to travel to the island at any hour because of regulations set by ASI. As a result of these rules, some of our time-critical emergencies can become trapped on the island depending on what time of day that they present. Going forward, we expect some flexibility with these rules as it pertains to medical evacuation in our time-critical cases after hours. Unfortunately, though, Madam Speaker, recent failed medical evacuations have occurred during normal daytime hours, as the choice of the accepting facility has been too far away to allow for transfer by our local airline within a few hours. The only solution for Montserrat's time-critical emergencies is Guadeloupe, 20 minutes away, with first-class facilities for the management of strokes, heart attacks, and major trauma, or with 3 main time-critical emergencies. The ministry is presently working on a solution with Guadeloupe in the form of an MOU. Air ambulance options are also being discussed. It is essential that we press on to get a solution, and no one can know when the next stroke, heart attack, or major trauma will be, and it is essential that we be prepared in order to reduce the risk of death and disability due to failure to act fast in these time-critical cases. I am confident that we have the support of the entire ministry and the government at large as we push forward with this. As we move closer to the St. Patrick's Festival, now only 2 weeks away, I'm obviously extremely nervous about our population doubling or tripling during that period, and I pray that when the time comes, that our plans for achieving successful medical evacuation by then are sorted. And I pray that we have a safe and uneventful St. Patrick's, and that if emergencies do occur, that the health team is able to manage, and that when medical evacuation is required for our visiting persons, that we get our patients out to the right place within the right time. This brings up the question of cost of care, Madam Speaker, as we move forward. We hope to encourage all persons who live locally who are eligible for health insurance to become insured. As it relates to the St. Patrick's Festival, I would like to take the opportunity to ask our visitors to obtain travel insurance for their visit. Brownie motto, be prepared.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
And Madam Speaker, my last question to the Honourable Minister. Can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this Honourable House of the progress that has been made to execute medivacs at night?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There has been little progress to date on nighttime medical evacuations, but discussions are still happening in regard to this. This will take work which must span different ministries, and I know Honourable Veronica Dorset-Hector in her ministry is working on this as well. The people of Montserrat have our commitment as a government to do all that we can to ensure that nighttime medical evacuation is facilitated.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A supplemental, please. Madam Speaker, considering that it's of critical importance that urgent cases are dealt with in a short time, as explained by the Minister, and because there are no medivacs at night, which means over 180 days per year, when you add it up, one cannot be evacuated. Can the Honourable Minister tell this Honourable House how serious it is not to be able to medevac patients at night and what the consequences are. Can you really explain this to us, Doc?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I've sort of explained, but if we are unable to medevac patients between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., that means that half the time that patients with life-threatening conditions are trapped on this island. Very often in time-critical cases, you really only have a window of a few hours, and this restriction in terms of timing will result in death and disability if we're not able to get stroke patients to a facility on time. Unfortunately, failures in medevac over the past month have suggested that the problems are deeper than this 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. issue. So we, at the same time, are obviously tackling those issues. It is essential that we correct the problem of nighttime medical evacuation. If not, all of us are at risk. Our visitors who come here are at risk. Our persons who come to live here are at risk. And the reality is that what we do with our time-critical cases, persons who are overseas are watching, and it makes them afraid. And they want to know that if they return to Montserrat, if they have a medical emergency, that we will be able to manage them efficiently locally, and we'll be able to get them out on time. So obviously this one topic has implications for repatriation, for maintaining our present population who want to feel safe, for improving investor confidence in Montserrat. Why spend millions here if your workers or yourself on a visit will be trapped on this island? So the implications of it span well beyond health, well beyond individuals, and it is essential that we come to a solution in order to allow Montserrat to progress.
Recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And on that note, I have no further questions.
Motions.
I recognize the Honorable Romeo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to withdraw the motion for a resolution that considers an increase in support to the income and salaries of the vulnerable, the working poor, pensioners, public servants, and other affected persons in the public and private sector. And if I may explain, Madam Speaker, I realize that most members have not had information to support this debate in good time. No fault. Things were really hectic over the past week. And it would be important for us to address this debate from a very informed position. Although it is urgent, I would like to see this House find a way to unite over this matter. And therefore, it is incumbent upon me to withdraw this supplemental and give the members this resolution and give the members sufficient time to thoroughly read and understand the supporting evidence provided. I read it repeatedly recently, and it is extremely serious, just as serious as what Honorable Buffon just explained about Medivacs, and I would therefore ask that this Honourable House support me in withdrawing the resolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So, honourable members, the member has asked to withdraw the resolution, so I'll now put the question. It has been, do we have a seconder? Yeah. Sorry. Is it withdraw? Just withdraw it. No, it's a with the leave of the assembly. With the leave of the assembly. Somebody second it. Somebody second. Can, can we have a, I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I rise just to second the motion to withdraw the resolution at hand.
So, members, it has been moved and seconded that the resolution as proposed by the Honorable Member be withdrawn. All those in favor, say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The resolution has been accordingly withdrawn.
Other business?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Chair, there is one standing committee of this Honorable House that we have not yet determined, and that's the Public Accounts Committee. I don't know whether or not the opposition is ready to discuss it now. You'd be willing to do it now? So we can ask for us to go into committee to have a discussion on the Public Accounts Committee.
Seconder. I recognize the Honorable Minister Bilt.
I stand to support the motion that we go into discussions for the appointment of the Public Accounts Committee and to do so to allow the House to go into committee stage, Madam Speaker.
So members, it has been moved and seconded that the House goes into committee to appoint the Public Accounts Committee. All those in favor? All those in favor? Those against, nay? I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The House will now go into committee. So following, well, excuse me, following what would have been a really non-controversial process, 2 committees were appointed, one being the Public Accounts Committee with the Honorable Paul Lewis as chair, the Honorable Nyota Mulcair, another member, and the Honorable Dwayne Hickson as the 3rd member of the Public Accounts Committee. All those in favor for these persons to be appointed to the committee?
Aye. Aye.
Those against? I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So the Honorable Paul Lewis, the Honorable Nyota Mulcair, and the Honorable Dwayne Hickson will serve on the Public Accounts Committee. And the other committee, which is the standing orders, a select committee to review the standing orders, Honorable Dorset Hector as chair, Honorable Donaldson Romeo as another member, Honorable Nyota Mulcair, someone from the AG's chambers who the Honorable Attorney General will select, Honorable Akira Misick from the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the Speaker would form the Standing Orders Select Committee. All those in favor, say aye. Those against, nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So the composition of the Select Committee to review the standing orders is as outlined just now.
Adjournment.
Recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move a motion for the adjournment of this Honorable House, sign it down.
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Madam Speaker, I stand to second the motion of the adjournment of this Honorable House, sign and die.
Members, it has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House stand adjourn, sign and die. All those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned, sign and die.